Now, as this information, which I called the Hub, it was created by a fellow called Don Allen. It's about 30 years old, so I'm going to update it on chart 2. We'll call this chart 1, and this is the information concerning what I call the Hub. Now, with this Hub, it goes back a fair way, and it starts, as you can see, and I'm pointing on the screen, with Rothschild, London, the Bank of England, and that brings in a fellow called Henry Schroeder Banking Corporation. As it comes through, just watch this with me slowly, and I'll go up slowly on the screen with you so that you can get a good look at it back home. JP Morgan & Co., which is a name you all know now. Morgan Stanley, Schroeder again. We're in Germany, coming through. Keep on going. Now, we're in the Bank of Germany, and they marry into the family. Then you've got Lehman Brothers and Kuhn Loeb in New York. Again, Lehman Brothers. And you've got several of the Lehman Brothers. As I go further down, you'll see the Federal Reserve Bank of New York, National City Bank of New York, National Bank of Commerce New York, Hanover National Bank New York, Chase National Bank New York. These are the king leaders of what I call the Hub, and they own the New World Order. They are the New World Order. It's the Federal Reserve Directors, a study of corporate and banking influence. Now, as you can see that on your screen, it goes to show you how they finance both sides of the war. They finance Hitler, and they finance, well, in other words, they finance the winner and the loser, but on the basis that the winner would pick up the bills to cover the losses of the loser. And that's how they worked. Now you've got J. Henry Schroeder coming down to the Schroeder, Rockefeller and Company in New York, where you can see I'm pointing on the screen to you. Now you have Avery Rockefeller, J. Henry Schroeder, Banking Corporation, Bechtel Company, Bechtel International Company, and Canadian Bechtel Company. Now these people are the owners of the Federal Reserve Bank. As I go down here now, you can see the Federal Reserve Directors, a study of corporate and banking influences. Now this is interesting. This is the David Rockefeller chart. Shows a link between the Federal Reserve Bank of New York, Standard Oil of Indiana, and General Motors and Allied Chemical Corporation. Now it's interesting to note that they own General Motors, and yet they bailed it out. They were going to send it bankrupt. As you look through here, you'll have an idea of their tentacles, of what they own, and every walk of your life is under their control. Just quickly have a look. The biggest one of all here, General Electric. Scott Paper, United States. Now we're looking at the Federal Reserve Directors, a study of corporate and banking influence. The interlock between the Federal Reserve Bank of New York, J. Henry Schroeder Banking Corp., J. Henry Schroeder Trust Company, Rockefeller Center Incorporated, Equitable Life Assurance Society, J.P. Morgan, and the Federal Reserve Bank of Boston. The Federal Reserve Bank of Boston, you can see who's in it. New England Telephone Company. Now, I want to make a note here with you, Mellon National Corporation. If you go back to who came out of the Mellon Institute, you'll find it was their junk science that fraudulently propped up aluminium factories that were making the fluoride. They propped up fluoride being good for the teeth. That came out of the Mellon Institute. That was a junk science where it came from. And they have pushed it all the way along the line because they also supplied it to Hitler, which it was used to dumb down the prisoners that were in the camps. And now today, under the New World Order, they're going to dumb down the public because they've pushed it into the water that everybody's going to drink in all of the countries that are under a treaty to the United Nations. Well, one question that everybody wants to know and everybody asks, who is the New World Order? And who owns the New World Order? Who controls the New World Order? And who owns the Federal Bank? And of course, it just goes to show who owns who. The World Health Organization and the United Nations. Now, if we look on this chart that I've made up for you, down the bottom you'll see that every criminal syndicate has to work through reputable fronts, reputable organizations. There's a few more to put in here, but in this case, it suffices to say the CFR, IMF, NATO, World Health Organization, United Nations, the FT and the TC, Trilateral Commission, Free Trade, all of these have been set up by what we call the hub. So in the previous section I showed you what I call the hub. The hub is the financiers of the world. The Rothschilds, George Soros, the Rockefeller. These people have been charged with criminal charges to attempt mass genocide and mass murder using the flu virus and using deadly vaccines which are not safe. So from the hub we have reputable fronts, and from there we have the organisations that they control. Then follow me up here. First of all, they have the rights to print money. You can see that on your screen now. The World Bank, the Federal Bank and all countries, they own that. They control the food and the crops. They own or control the chemical and drug companies, and subsequently they now own the seed patent rights. And they've caused havoc all over the world by that. The poor people in Mexico who have corn as their staple diet, and they did not want to have genetically modified seed, they've even gone in there and they've sprayed with planes over the crops to contaminate and put a different pollination into their corn crops to ruin their staple diet. Up here, they want to control the media. Now either they purchase the media or they provide loans for development, and if the media doesn't do that with them and do what they're told, they'll dry up their raw materials. Try and start a newspaper today without and find out where you can buy the paper. They control the elected politicians. They will choose their own people, and through their secret societies they will fund the politician to get elected, and there's unlimited money because they print the money. Then they'll control the learning institutions. They will fund and grant universities and scientific research, and then of course they own the research. They'll control the medicine, own and control all pharmaceutical companies, which you now know they do, and they've got deadly vaccines which they're going to use as a bioweapon. They own and control finance and insurance companies. Now, over here, they will convert all governments into corporations for easy control. First, the thing they've got to do is to make all governments go broke and loan them a lot of money, take all of the assets away from them, use the assets for collateral, and then send the government broke. And they're just about to do that all over the world. They want a complete meltdown. You can't have a new world order come in without the old world order being thrown out. You can't have new currency come in without the old currency being evaporated, so they can bring in the new currency. Then they want to choose the best, and they're already doing this. They'll elevate them into judicial positions. Now, if you want to know who owns what, here it is here for you. The hub, going back to the syndicate, going back to the financiers of the world, the banking cartel, the hub is the New World Order to control the world. They own it. They are now inaugurating the 4 unions to control the world because they'll do it through 4 unions. The EU, the African Union, the Asian Union, and of course the North American Union. They've kept all this very, very quiet, and it won't be long before you'll have the Amero currency for the North American Union. We'll have a different currency for the Asian Union, of which Australia will be part of. the African Union, and of course the EU already has their own currency. So there you see a chart which will explain to you what they're going to get up to, and they're just about to kick a goalpost, and it's not going to be good for our society anywhere in the world. Several other websites have taken this chart and used it, and they're welcome. And I just say to you right now, if you wish to use this on your website, you can go into www.cleanairandwater.net and grab it and put it on your website so that people can find out what's actually gone on in this world over the last 50 to 100 years.